Ready to find your flow? AFSA's got you covered.
That's right. The hands-on training lab in Richardson, Texas is where you trade PowerPoints for pipe wrenches. Real tools, real systems, and real experience you can actually use.
And if you're ready to test your skills, check out the hands-on NFPA 25 workshops, where you'll inspect, test, and maintain live sprinkler systems and fire pumps. No simulations, no fluff, just pressure, flow, and know-how.
It's the perfect way to get under pressure without cracking under it.
So get fired up and register today at firesprinkler.org. Spots fill faster than a charged branch line.
AFSA, where you don't just learn the code, you live it. Welcome to the K Factor podcast, where we turn up the heat on all things fire protection. Brought to you by the American Fire Sprinkler Association, this podcast sparks conversations about the latest technology, trends, and tools shaping the industry. Join the AFSA tech team as we fan the flames of innovation in fire safety.
Welcome to another episode of the K Factor podcast. We are here with Vicky Valentine. And I was going to say your title. However,
you don't remember it.
It's a long one.
It is.
I don't remember it.
It is. The Director of Program Development and Special Projects.
So I had the special projects in the back of my head. What does that mean? What are you doing?
That's an excellent question. So I do a lot of strategy for our program development and determining what we can accomplish and resource, basically, to actually build and where all of the classes actually fit on a calendar, which is always a fun game too.
So that doesn't sound like a challenging job at all.
No, because we have all this spare time around here. And then I get the special projects part, which is all sorts of tasks, from how we better recruit into the industry to how do we bring better customer service to our members for platforms and softwares that we're using, as well as just general networking and connecting the right people to others so we can move forward.
So what's the current project concentration what's a big one for you right now? What are we working on?
The big one is bringing in a new learning management system for all of our online education. And considering that education is our mission around here, that's super important, and trying to refresh that, as well as just bring in some new items that we can utilize for educating and the user experience.
I guess I didn't realize there were so many different ones, and that was a thing, right?
I actually, at the beginning of all of this, months ago, spent a couple of days strictly doing 20-minute demos.
Fun.
With, I think in the 2 days, I probably fit in about 30 different softwares that were out there, and some you can look at immediately and go, that's not the right fit for what we do, and others it's like, oh well, I'm gonna have to dig deeper and see where that really goes. So we're narrowing the field. We're excited to say that it should be fairly early in 2026 when we have something new online for others, but we're not quite there yet.
Yeah. So I actually would rather you explain what you want to talk about today.
So one of my passions in this industry is really trying to tell people that fire protection's a field. It's just something that we haven't gotten out to others enough. And I find we all like to talk to each other. And as much fun as that is, I'm all for a good session, sitting down and discussing it internally. I think our main focus really needs to be, how do we tell people who aren't already in the industry? And if you've been around recently, I've always been using the line, probably in the last year or so, that we are Hotel California. As soon as people learn about us, they come right in and they never get back out. So I think that awareness factor is the big piece. And I really think that that's something that we should also be promoting, is how do you do this? And who else do you talk to? And what are some good options to help get the word out there?
So how did you find fire protection? What's your story like?
Oh,
it's almost like an addiction meeting when we talk science, right?
Yeah. So for me, I guess it's a somewhat convoluted. I kind of had a bunch of different things align simultaneously to land here. I was an undergrad at WPI, so obviously it just happened to be one of the few schools where it was a thing. And I did have a couple of friends who were a couple of years ahead of me in the program. In addition, in my junior year of college, I had a massive fire in my hometown. And my mom was a politician and a city official. And so I knew a lot of the behind the scenes. I also knew a lot of behind the scenes from the fire department because I used to do NFIRS reports.
Nice. Those are fun.
Yeah. So in the days when most firefighters didn't know how to type. So I was strictly admin. They would leave me this stack of handwritten papers. Had my own key to the firehouse so that I could go use the one computer that was in the firehouse and enter all the NFIRS reports. So it kind of had just a bunch of different things. That fire, though, in particular, really just struck my interest. So it was a building from 1901 in a traditional New England downtown Main Street where buildings were about 3 feet apart from each other, only about 3 stories. Masonry construction on the outside, and this building burnt for 3 days.
Wow.
Fire department did its job. That it never left that original structure.
Heavy timber.
There was heavy timber floors, masonry on the exterior.
Yeah.
And what I learned and was curious about as to how this thing could burn for so long, right? And I learned that in order to build buildings in 1901, in order to keep the wood structure adequate, they soaked it in oil. So it was oil-soaked wood, and it would just became a fuel source. So
what can go wrong?
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. What could possibly go wrong with that plan?
Yeah, but it was so intriguing to me. It was just that, I was studying civil engineering. I always wanted to do structures. And frankly, my goal even still is someday I'm going to get around to, I want to take old buildings and I want to rehab them. I want to give them new purpose, new life. I really love old construction. So it really just kind of combined all these things together. And then you have the one missing piece to all of this is, as a civil engineering undergrad, I was part of the AFSA student chapter, and they were really pushing. And I will tell you that 25 years later, they are still pushing. It has not happened for a master's degree before you can get a professional engineering license.
Okay.
In the sense of when you look at the overall spectrum of occupations, there is a difference, right? Like in order to be a teacher in a school, in order to be considered that professional occupation, you have to have a master's degree.
Right.
But in order to be an engineer that does public welfare, life safety, all of these things, you don't right now. There's no requirement for that. So they've been pushing for this for a long time, but they had me convinced that I wasn't going to make it under a grandfathering bar and that I should get a master's degree. So I started exploring, like, what does that look like? So the culmination of all of these different things at the same time. And if I would be amiss if I didn't credit Bob Fitzgerald with also having some key factor in this. I used to call him the grandfather of the civil department. And I actually talked to Fitzy just a couple of weeks ago. So he's still in his 90s, still reaching out to students and talking to everybody, which is fabulous. And he was also a big influence, saying, give it a shot. If you don't like it, we'll
figure something out.
We'll use some of these classes towards something else, and, we'll get it there. So all of that is what landed me here. But the amazing part to me is I'm one of few who didn't have family in the industry. Mm-hmm. And we see so much of that. So just kind of thinking about that perspective and, how do you tell somebody else and how do you get that information out there? And even those who have been touched by fire, what does it take? And I don't know if any of you have had an opportunity, or I guess it's really not an opportunity, but having that moment of a friend who had a fire, like even just in their home. And how do you carry that forward and what do you do? And, some of my best advice is blankets, towels, and anything soft, because you will never get the smell out of anything you have.
Right.
So when you think about what has to be replaced and those aspects, and then when you think about the rebuild, right? Here we are sitting in the Sprinkler Association and, what are we doing to help people even when they have to do the rebuild? Are you putting sprinklers in?
Yeah. It's tough.
And it's having those conversations. We had, in a previous job of mine, one of our secretaries was a teenager when she had the house fire. And it was such an odd thing that eventually she found her way to working in an administrative role in a group that focused on fire protection, and just hearing her personal story of she wished she knew then.
Right.
Things she knew now. I have hysterical family stories about all these sorts of things, everything from the fire department showing up because my mom decided she wanted to make French fries at home.
I actually, on the fire service, didn't mind those calls. There's worse things.
I come from a small town. One of the volunteers lives 4 houses down.
Yeah.
He was first on scene. He helped her flip the cover on the pan over. And we were all good. So that story ended fairly well. But I have so many of these crazy stories. I think one of my personal favorites was my grandmother, who I was a very lucky person. I had my grandmother well into adulthood. She lived to be 101. But I remember right at that turning point, right before she went into nursing care, she was in the hospital for a few days. And I was on a business trip, and I called the hospital just to talk to her. And I said, Grandma, I'll be home in a couple of days. I'll come check on you as soon as I get home. And she goes, you don't have to worry about me. I have a sprinkler on the ceiling.
That's fantastic.
Right?
Yeah.
So it was one of those things of, I've gone and I've talked to my mother's Rotary Club. Yeah. Rotary isn't one that fits into my personal schedule, but, I go, I don't know, every few years and go down and talk to the club about what's going on with fire safety that they need to know and things like that. So I really think that aspect of, are we talking to ourselves? Or are we talking to somebody else? For me, I'm northeast corner of Pennsylvania. I belong to my local chapters for ASCE, so the civil engineering groups, women in construction. So there's a bunch of other groups where at least I bring in a voice of fire protection, like, oh wait, hey, that's a career, that's an option, that's a it's a cool thing. I've done some outreach in schools, which I advocate for anybody who has that opportunity. The younger, the better. I hear there's a new book that you could even take with you, like on reading days.
Yeah. It's not a long read, so
but I've done kindergarten outreach.
Yeah.
Where I have a lot of friends who are school teachers, and they're always looking for somebody to come in and read a book to the class.
So before the public outreach too, there's also this more intimate outreach. So when you decided you were going to do your master's program, what was the conversation like with family or friends? Like how was your experience with that?
I'll go with it depends.
Okay.
Which is
best answer in all fire protection.
Right?
Here we go.
Right? Absolutely.
You have a certificate from the owner?
I'll go with it depends. My immediate family was fine, although I will say my dad never knew or understood what I did. He was extremely happy, actually, when my husband came into the picture, because he understood sales.
Okay.
And he understood that, okay, you go out and you sell this, and that was great. And he still has no clue what I did. That's funny. What I do, what I've done. Like, it just doesn't register with him. So it's definitely been hit or miss. And I certainly have not had a traditional path. Being in the association realm for my entire career is certainly a unique aspect. So that doesn't help that piece at all. We certainly get, if I tell somebody that I am in fire protection, you definitely get the, so you work with the firefighters. Well, no. I try to work before them. But you'll always end up with some of the misconstrued ideas. But, for me, I think just promoting that fire protection is a career gets us everywhere, right? It's not just sprinklers that needs people. It's, the alarms, it's special systems. It's interesting to me how small this community is. And you recognize that the second you go to a conference, and how everybody knows everybody. And, it's 6 degrees from Kevin Bacon, but I swear nobody in this industry is more than 3 degrees away kind of thing. And it's fascinating that how small we are. We have 9 different professional associations for fire protection.
And I'm not sure the statistics, but I've been told some. And less than 10% of contractors or people that are intimately involved are a part of one of those 9.
Yeah, I'd probably go slightly higher than 10, but you're definitely in the right ballpark. In general, what I will say is you have about 10% in AFSA, you got about 10% in NFSA, and you have some overlap between those two.
So we're probably pushing 20.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So you're somewhere between 15 and 20% that are actually involved in their own associations for their field. And, I even try and tell that to engineers that are in different fields or other technicians that are in other fields of find your professional associations, because they're out there for just about every field.
So how do we talk to other people about our industry, in your opinion?
Step one is just have a conversation.
Is admitting.
Yeah. Right? Like, how many places have you been and somebody says, what do you do? And you pause for a second, like, how much do you want to know? Right? Like, and in some cases, I'll start with, well, I'm an engineer. Mm-hmm. And you wait for how does that reaction go before you take the next step of fire protection. But, those conversations can be with anybody. So I have a great story. I was on vacation a few weeks ago, and this one was just so different, I guess, right? I go on vacation, I check out. Like, I am fabulous at, no, I will get back to you when I return. Like, we all need that break. And this one, I couldn't quite hang it up. So we have timeshare and happen to be outside of the country, and I'm looking at this building and they're doing some construction and there's CPVC up in the ceiling and there's cables wrapped around them. There's bundles of cables draped over them. And I'm looking at this and it's like, oh, this is really not what I wanted to see. Now, I was excited a few days before I found this because they've had sprinklers that were voluntarily recalled 20 years ago in place, making me insane on a regular basis. And they're replacing them as they're doing some of this other work, but that's why the ceiling was open. And now you start seeing these problems. And so needless to say, through a meeting that I went to, talking to the head facilities guy that was there, and I was like,
what a vacation.
Right? Right? Middle of the vacation. And I was just like, hey, could we go for a walk up to the 4th floor? He's looking at me like, oh no, like, we were just talking about the recalled sprinklers like 2 weeks before this kind of thing. And I was like, could we just come for a walk with me? Let's go see. So we did. And one of the things I think that was just so fabulous is, this guy does facilities. So he's not just in charge of the sprinkler system. It's everything with the building. And it's everything from, is the AC working properly to everything else. So, but how appreciative he was for knowledge. Like, that was the key. And it's just one of those things I find, especially being as transient, right? And we all travel for the job and you're on the road somewhere. If you see something, it goes back to wasn't New York the first one to do if you see something, say something, right? Yeah. Do you, right? If something's wrong in the hotel room, do you tell someone? And you're going to tell somebody who is certainly not the person who is A, going to fix it, or B, may even fully understand what you're telling them. But do you tell them? So we had this conversation. He was so excited. He actually asked me for additional information later. So, of course, I'm pulling cut sheets. And
I hope you're at least doing that on the beach.
Poolside.
That's okay.
Poolside. Does poolside count?
Yeah, that works.
Close enough.
I was sitting under a cute little hut, poolside, pulling cut sheets and sending them over to him. And friends of mine happened to be on that particular floor. And the next morning they came down and they said, all the drywall's gone. Right. So it wasn't just that, like, I told him and he was like, okay, well, let me see what this is about. Like, he stopped work.
That's awesome.
And was fixing the situation. And we later learned that there were a couple other spots earlier in the year where older systems that had been installed for a long time had exactly that situation. And they were replacing piping because it was leaking. So, but I don't know how to help everybody else make that outreach. But I'm telling you, it can be small. And every little bit, it's a trickle effect. It goes from, when you're staying in a property and you see something wrong with the sprinkler system, tell the front desk. 90% of the time, it's at least going to go above that, right? Like, they'll hand it off to somebody else. But if you're not telling someone, it's kind of one of those, if you're not part of the solution.
And it's, I think, because to kind of stem from the question before, also knowing who you're talking to, this might come from a training background and knowing what their vested interest is typically the easiest way to tie. So if you just blindly talk about our industry, it gets overwhelming quick. People don't know that they should care. Yeah. I don't know if that's, I don't want to say they don't care, once they figure it out, they tend to.
And it's interesting, some of the general misconceptions. So, when you're in these resort areas, they're always trying to sell you something. And they bribed me, so I went.
Oh,
Another
hey,
week? We're gonna. It was. Let's say I got, I don't know, a dinner credit and like something else to give them an hour of my time to try and sell me whatever program that I know me, and I knew I was going to say no. I was like, yeah, an hour, yeah, okay, let's do it. So my husband and I go. And of course, my husband doesn't want to do this. He's certainly purely entertaining me. There was no doubt in my mind that he was entertaining me, that we were going to go, because my big thing was it was a brand new property and I really just wanted to walk through it and see what it was all about. And so I'm like, okay, so now somebody's going to give me a guided tour and they're going to give me like some certificate so I can go to dinner. I'm like, all right, let's do it. Brand new property, open since December. And this was only a couple of weeks ago. And the number of flaws that we could find in the sprinkler system immediately. So of course we're talking to the guy, and one of the managers came in to see us, and we're like, we certainly can't think about being part of this group for any reason, because there's all sorts of issues, and this is our only experience with you. Well, the guy made statements to me that were eye-opening in the sense of, I said, I know you're a big European. There's a lot of Europe properties that you own. I was like, can you tell me that they all have fire sprinklers in them? I said, because that's important to me. And he says, of course they do. They don't build anything without that. Well,
it depends.
Right? Yeah, exactly. And I was like, well, I said, there's a lot of buildings that are grandfathered. I said, there's a lot of buildings that get exceptions for different reasons. And I said, tremendously through Europe, there's a lot more passive protection than active. So I said, I can't take you on the statement of absolutely, like they are all sprinklered. I said, I would need a little more information with this. And the guy was just taken aback. But I do think there are those misconceptions. There's that general public thought process of, well, of course there's these different fire protection systems and they're all in play and nothing goes wrong with them. And which of course could roll right
impeccably
into,
maintained.
Right. It was going to roll right there, Eric, was, ITM is always done.
But the food's great.
Until you see the kitchen, just saying.
Oh, yeah.
Don't ever look in the kitchen.
That's number one.
Correct.
Once you start getting to special hazards, hood systems, never inspect a place near your home that you love to eat at.
Yeah. Don't do it.
No.
Don't do it.
A few towns over that you might go to every once in a while, sure, go for it. But if you really like it, don't bother going in the back.
Yeah. You don't want to know how the soup's made.
So what other misconceptions
I
frustrate you or are ones that you come up with or see a lot?
I don't know that we have that kind of time.
We can talk. We always have that kind of time.
I have a lot of pet peeves in the world. I think that there is a general thought process that has been ongoing for some time. I've gotten a lot more involved with different organizations that are aimed at the trades. I think there's general misconceptions that college has to be the route. Mm-hmm. And I think there are some absolutely fabulous fire protection professionals that have a high school education. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think
and our industry's allowing of that. Like that works.
Yeah.
Other industries don't always say that, but you can have a great career.
Yeah. So you want to talk about my general public pet peeves? That's one of them. Is college is not the solution for everybody. I have personal friends who I watched force a son to go to college. And I believe at the end of the first semester, the GPA was somewhere like a 0.2.
Nice.
And I was watching this ahead of time, like, why are we doing this? Like, this kid has no desire to be there whatsoever. And after that first semester, when everybody realized this was not the appropriate path forward, he went into being an auto mechanic, got trained by one of the big dealers and then went into a private and, flourishing. Right. Absolutely fabulous, like great career. And, so college isn't the answer for everyone. And I think that that's a big misconception that's as far as the general public goes. And I think fire protection in general has so many opportunities for that, from layout technicians to those who are actually installing whether they want to go more of an electrical route with alarm systems, whether they want to go more of a mechanical route with pipe and couplings. I think that they're great opportunities. I'm not certain how much your audience has seen, but there's an organization out there called Micro Works, which obviously Micro is the one who did Dirty Jobs. And he's got a whole foundation now aimed strictly at the trades, and some different YouTube videos, if you want to Google it, that are out there and really talking about some fabulous opportunities. One of the big ones he just found was how trade work and something that you can physically do with your hands is one of the biggest combatants for PTSD.
That's fantastic.
And they have some fabulous statistics that they're building on this. There's a forge, and I can't remember what state it was in. I should, because I only saw this video a couple of weeks ago. But at this point, because they've been around for so long, they've put over 10,000 people through this program, but specifically targeting a lot of the veterans. And the numbers are insane, like as far as you see these huge suicide statistics for PTSD from military and things like that. And they are cut down to almost nothing.
That's great.
So they're seeing a huge connection between something you can physically do with your hands and the ability to overcome some of these traumas and situations they've been through. So, I mean, I can't speak highly enough for trade work and having that ability. And Lord knows we would not have the safety we do across the United States if it wasn't for the people who are physically doing that.
And then I think we also think that we're unique trade in the sense that we're not backfilling as much as, but that's a whole construction thing. All the trades.
During AFSA's convention, when were we in Vegas? 2 years ago?
I think too.
And
time's starting to run together.
Right? I know. But I remember physically being in the hotel room, and I had just turned on the morning news. I watch local news, irrelevant of where I am, which is sometimes a wild ride. Especially when they give me traffic and weather reports. And I'm like, right? So anyways, I always throw on the local news, and it was on. I was just getting ready for the day ahead. And all of a sudden, they had a news story come on where it was specifically targeting the trades. And the reason it probably caught my attention as I was, walking around and getting ready in the morning was because they did the entire interview of the two people who were sitting on toilets.
Nice.
But they were in a trade school and talking not just about plumbing in general, but they were doing electricians, all of the different trades. And they were really talking about the need. And I just thought, what a wild combination of it's during our conference where, we had the apprenticeship competition going on and all sorts of things. And it was just a really cool coincidence of timing. But it was one of the big national, it was picked up for the local syndication, but it was, I don't know if it was 60 Minutes or something, but it was one of the bigger.
So what you're saying is once the K Factor podcast goes onto YouTube, we should do it on toilets.
Hey, I think we could make some cool stools out of valves. Let's go industry.
I was gonna say, I don't know about toilets. I don't want my legs to go numb like that.
Right? It's all about the right chair.
You're too long. You're there for too long, bro.
I mean, we're doing a podcast, so we gotta be there for a while. So.
But no, I think you could. I might know a couple manufacturers that would, we could probably finagle this.
You know a couple.
I might know a couple.
Just a couple.
Just a couple. Well, that's an interesting moment too, right? We have 4 sprinkler manufacturers in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
When I started in this industry, we had 9.
I've never really thought that way.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And they started reducing extremely rapidly. I swear it was only weeks after I joined this industry. But
what'd you do?
Nothing. But there was this group out there. It was something like Take Your Company Over.
No. We can't go there.
No, but that was, I came in right at that point,
right.
Where Central was being purchased and going through that process. But there were actually 9 sprinkler manufacturers when I got hired. And I want to say the peak was somewhere around 13. I remember correctly.
That's always interesting too. 'Cause, I mean, there's a handful more, right, internationally. Mm-hmm. But then we start looking at the listings and trying to get market share on this side when we have main 4. That's kind of a tough thing to get more into the U.S. market. As much fight that we have, we're probably one of the strongest fire protection countries in the world.
Yeah.
So definitely. I don't know how to break that. We got so many things to try to combat. This is crazy.
Well, it is, but it's not about like climbing the mountain. It's taking the few steps.
Okay.
And I think that's the important thing to remember is, it's telling your kids, it's being open with your family about what you do. It's, even taking the small steps of convincing family that they should be using the federal list of hotels. Right?
What's this federal list? I know nothing about this federal list.
Oh, you don't know?
I don't know about the federal list.
So if you're a government employee, there is a specific list of hotels that are approved by the government. And it's a big fire safety item. Like the Hotel and Motel Act, when all of that came through in the 70s, and so basically you're pretty much guaranteed fire sprinklers and general fire protection safety by picking a hotel that's on this list. You're not going to find the ones that don't have, somebody who's been grandfathered through and doesn't have the same levels of fire protection. And so you can use that list as well because they have international properties, since the government does have responsibility to go elsewhere at different times.
So I'm guessing it's a public list.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's been a long time since I've actually pulled it. It's not like I have the URL for you right this second, but
we might find it and we'll throw it in the notes on the podcast.
But there is a list where you can find this type of information. I mean, your other options are a couple of the big chains have their own corporate policies to do that. But even just making sure that, your family and friends are choosing options that are safe on the other side is a start.
So you've mentioned being involved in a bunch of other organizations kind of outside of fire protection. And I think the trades in general are trying to recruit more people. And I think that's a bigger topic than just us as fire protection. Is there any neat things that they're doing for those groups that you'd like to see brought into fire protection that you think might work?
I would say anything that can be done with children is probably the biggest impact. And that just goes to getting the interest in STEM, which you hear about occasionally, and having that general interest in the STEM aspects is what's going to get us people in all of the different construction fields in total. So I wouldn't say there's any particular programs I'm seeing right now. One of my personal favorites is a program called Future City. It's run by Discover E, and Discover E is a nonprofit organization specifically for making people aware of engineering. And they do all types of engineering, so it's not segregated into any particular one. But they have this program that's for middle school. And I didn't know anything about it until I joined the Society of Fire Protection Engineers when I was staff for them. And I got handed this saying, hey, we do an award for this program, and here you go. Like, go do what you need to do to make sure it gets handed out appropriately. And it was like, oh, well, I didn't know this existed. And I'm thinking, like, I had been a member of SFPE for years. So, like, I thought you'd hear about it somewhere. And I didn't. So I had to learn. And I happened to, my first year involved with that was Future City's 20th year. So it was the first year they broadcast online. And they filmed just the final competition. And so there's regional competitions all over the country. And this program looks for mentors to go in the schools. They also just look for people who can commit a single day and do the judging on different levels. But they get a whole playbook as to building this city. And the theme changes every year. They've had years where they're focused on an aging community. So you have to have all the things in place for older populations. I've seen them one year, they did something with a space type theme. So they come up with some pretty cool themes. I will tell you, those middle schoolers are so smart and so creative. And yes, as an adult, you're going to sit there and look at some things and be like, well, that's not, like, logistics are not going to pan out on that, right? But they are
is not high enough
so creative. But because SFPE continues to sponsor a fire protection award, there is an award for if they put fire protection in their city. And we send judges down and they look at the final projects. It has expanded beyond the United States. So I think last year I saw Egypt had a team in the finals. But it goes on a local kind of almost state level, and then it kind of goes regional, and then it goes to the big national ones. The nationals are always held during engineering week. So it's always in February where you can catch word of that. But I think it's a great program. And I think middle school is probably one of the key targets. There's so much that we don't even realize that a teenager has decided by the time they get into high school. And it's harder to break down some of those walls if you don't have some of that knowledge and basis built in earlier.
And it's a long-term play that we're behind on.
Yeah.
Right. So what we're dealing with is not like we're going to be able to fix our employees or bringing employees into the workforce tomorrow anyways. So you might as well invest for the next 10 years.
Absolutely. And I think the more you can collaborate, I think collaboration is really the key too, is, we have some members, I've been talking to a handful of our members and stuff who are doing things locally and regionally to help their own, pipelines, and which is great. But what I'm seeing in the successful options are really that they're collaborating with others. They're working with a local community college. They're working with other organizations and chapters that may have some outreach that they can tie into. And just being present. And when somebody says, who do you work for? And what do you do? And those are some of the simplest, but the best avenues. And
advertising too, because the chapter that comes to mind, and I know that there's work being done elsewhere, right? Like the Virginia chapter is always posting stuff on social media and collaborating with people in the local community.
Yep.
And you can tell that it's working. Like
they're starting to see some good things. There's a community college out there that's actually looking to work with us and bring in the sprinkler fitter program.
That's fantastic.
Which is a big to do.
Yeah.
We'll have big celebrations, but they got a hold button pushed on them a couple of weeks ago, so it was a little sad. But he said, I'm going to be in the top list of people he'll call as soon as that button has been released.
So I think that's some of the issue, though, too, is collaboration's great and some of our ideas are great. But as you start to work through and trying to get stuff in, I'm not saying we're plumbing. However, if you think about our parts and pieces and the trade and vocational schools that are out there, most of those parts are there. We can get you a threader.
Well, that's interesting, too, because I have, overseeing the virtual instruction program that we do here, I've actually had 2 students now bring me transcripts that they've already done the core.
Yeah.
So, which is an excellent option, right? And so they get enrolled into the program, but they basically have already passed a good portion of it. So it's always that, what skill set do you have, not, how much do you know about sprinklers?
But sometimes we go and try to implement it, and then we hit these roadblocks, and that's tough.
It can be, but like you said, we're playing the long. It's the long game, not the short game. So
how do we talk about people who were not, I don't know how to word it, seeded at a younger age, right? We put a little seed in their head. Because right now we are facing this issue where you talk to everybody, and it's very interesting the more that I think about it. We don't have enough people. We only try to get experienced people, right? Like it's just, but how do our member contractors or anyone out there looking for someone talk to people who are older, who have no clue what's the fire sprinkler industry is or fire protection is?
I think in a lot of ways that's called meeting them where they are.
Okay.
Right? Because fire protection affects everybody, from whether or not you have a fire extinguisher in your kitchen at home.
You're supposed to have? No, I'm just kidding.
I will tell you, when I moved into the house we're in now, we just threw a hey, we're finally here party. And one of our friends, that was what they purchased as our housewarming gift, was we got a new fire extinguisher. Yeah. Not
Probably
that we were short
gift.
On any in our house, but we were like, that is awesome. Yeah. Somebody else has a housewarming party. That's what I'm bringing from now on. I like this. So, but yeah, I think it's as simple as that. It's meet them where they are. What are they looking at? When you think about some of the older community, when you think about whether it's grandparents or parents, I'm approaching that age now where my parents are now those ages. And, what's next for them? Are they downsizing? What does that mean? What does that look like? What is the fire safety of where they're going as they're reaching a point in their life where they're not as more mobile? And taking in some of those considerations are going to get people to start thinking oh, wow, why are you thinking about this? And, what is your background and that will help them to realize what the industry is and what we do as a whole.
That's awesome. Is there anything you'd like to leave our listeners with as we?
It's cheesy. I feel like I belong on the more you know kind of, big star from whatever network that is that does this. But I really feel like it's the cliche of you can make a difference. And one of the things I've realized in my career is you don't know what you say to someone and how important that it may just be an off the cuff, like in passing something. And you don't know how important that is. And the example I have from that is I was down in Brazil teaching for a few days. And it was our annual conference last year in Denver that this woman walks up to me and she says, I had you in class. And of course, those of you who are instructors understand that when you get this after 20 plus years of teaching, you're like, great. I don't know what class. I don't and I'm feeling like somewhat guilty as she's all excited clearly to see me. And I'm like, I don't know who you are. I don't know what we're talking about yet. And she says, you were in Brazil. And so as she kept describing where we were, I finally narrowed in at least on the event. And I was like, okay, yeah. I was like, that's great. I'm so glad you're here. And she looked at me and really stopped me in my tracks because she said, you're the first woman I ever saw in this industry who could present and who really knew this industry. She goes, and I knew I could do it. Right? Like that's what I mean by you don't know what difference you can make to someone else. And everything counts. Everything counts, whether it's the general encouragement of somebody who's new in the office, whether it's, reaching out to your own children's class, whether it's, talking to a teacher about like, hey, could I come in once a year and talk to your sixth graders? And could we talk about fill in the blank here? I think all of it makes a difference.
Well, we really appreciate you being on the podcast, and I'm sure this is one of many as you come back. When's the next time you're down?
It's not on the calendar yet, but we can work on this.
All right. Sounds good. We really appreciate you being here.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
This has been the K Factor Podcast. If you enjoyed the show, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share wherever you tune in to podcasts, or head over to our website for more. Reach out to us anytime at technical@firesprinkler.org. Stay safe and always learn as we keep the fire protection conversation going.